Hello, my name is Cade Martin, and I am doing my presentation over the near miss analysis of the Green Team Airport documents. So, a little background on the airport is that it's located in Portland, Oregon, and the airport is employing over 200 employees. So, a near miss is an accident or incident, excuse me, that could have resulted in an injury or death, but did not. The good thing about a near miss is, first off, no one got hurt, but it gives you a chance to correct anything that needs to be corrected. You can look at your safety program and it'll show you where your weak points are, where you need to fix things. You can also apply high risk scores to these so you can measure the risk that is involved with every task and determine which ones need the most focus, which ones need the most uh, implementation of some sort of safety uh, practice. So here we have nearness or near miss by category, and our top three are mobile equipment, ergonomics, and material handling. So why are these three things the highest? And especially mobile and ergo, we'll look at those specifically. Why are these three things the highest? Well, I would say mobile equipment because there is so much human interaction between the mobile equipment and what is being used that any kind of, and I would say being inattentive, which was what I mostly saw, was that people that were working with vehicles, driving, anything like that, that were being inattentive or they were breaking laws on those vehicles, speeding in construction zones, tailgating, which you don't know what's going to happen if you're doing something like that. So it could result in people getting hurt, killed, even. Or damage to company property, which is going to be one of those indirect costs. So you're going to see a spike in money that you're having to spend on repairing these vehicles. Ergo, I would say the amount of things that were like picking things up, for say, there's a certain form that needs to be done with picking these things up, and and I've learned this before in other classes is that with ergonomics, there needs to be some sort of training for it because take back braces for example. Back braces don't fix everything. They're just supposed to remind you to lift with your legs, pick things up. So that could be why you're seeing a spike in ergonomic injuries or near misses, excuse me. So here by count of the month, so the graph itself is showing how many near misses you have for each month. And it seems like starting on May, you start seeing a jump in numbers of near misses. And especially in November and December, where you see a huge spike up to 40 and 41 near misses in those months, and 81 total combined. So why are we peaking at these points? Why is November, December you see this large of a peak? Well, and even in July, August, you start seeing that jump is because I would say travel. You have a lot of travel happening during that time, especially November and December. People are traveling to see family, so a lot more work is getting done during those months. So, what opportunities could you have to fix something like this? Well, I would say during those months would be a very good time to observe everything that's going on because you're seeing a jump in work, a jump in traffic, a jump in people coming to the airport. So you really need to take a look at your safety program during those months and determine where can I implement something to drop the near misses. So next we have the near miss by days of the week. So as you can see, we have a spike on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And throughout the rest of the week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you see kind of a leveling off. And it's still high in those days, but you see the most on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So why is that? Why are you seeing that much of a jump on days like that? Well, I would say maybe that's start of the week. Think of it like that. Well, if you've ever gone to work, it's a Monday. You just got off of a weekend, and that's not for everyone. You still have people working on Sundays, Saturday, and Sundays and stuff. But most work starts at the start of the week. So any big projects you have to do, any incoming material, most big jobs start on Monday, and most people are not wanting to be there. So they're probably tired from whatever they did that weekend, lackadaisical. They're not feeling like working. So it's going to cause them to be inattentive, and you're going to see a spike. You're going to see a spike in the amount of near misses because more people are not paying attention. And then by the end of the week, you're ready to get to Friday, or you're ready to get to Friday, Saturday, get to the weekend. Thursday, to me, it seems like most people are like, okay, I'm here. We're almost to the end of the week, but that's where the work starts to more attention to the safety program starts. And on Friday and Saturday, you start seeing, hey, I'm just ready to go home for the weekend. I'm ready to be done with work. So I would say one thing you could really focus on with this is how to get people to be ready for the Mondays, how to help them to not be so lackadaisical. And it could be something just as simple as a meeting, getting everybody woken up, getting everybody prepared for the week. So it's just one of those things that you really have to take a look at, because to understand a safety program, you have to understand how people feel uh, working, and how to help those people get ready for the work week. So the counter near miss by time, and as you can see, so through the early hours of the day, so 12 to 6, you see a very low number of near misses occurring during these hours. And then from 7 to 10, you see a huge jump up to 30, which really doesn't drop off until around 4 p.m. You see that drop at 2 p.m., but through those hours, you see a big drop. And I would say you see a big jump. So I would say the reason behind this, and the reason this is such a problematic area, is because why are they having these near misses at these hours? Because if it's something like this is happening, that's a huge point where someone could get hurt. A near miss could become a recordable, maybe even a death. So it gives you an opportunity at these hours to watch and observe why these why you're experiencing more near misses at this time, and what you can do to fix that. I would also, and the reason I would say, my guess would be, once you get to about 9 or 10, you're ready for lunch. You're ready to take a break, especially if you've been working. If you started at 5, you've been working for 4 or 5 hours. You're ready to take a break. You're ready to go to lunch. So everybody's going to start rushing, getting everything done, just ready to get out of there, and they're being less attentive to detail, less attentive to safety, and you're seeing more near misses. And it's very dangerous. And one of the things you could do is remind your employees, like, hey, we're not on a rush, and don't rush them with that. Whatever time they get off for lunch is what time they get off. So say that lunch is at 11 and their work doesn't end until 11:15, whatever job they're doing, say, hey, you still have that hour to keep working, then just come back at 12:15. So group member versus non-group member. Uh, so as you can see on the left graph, that there is about an even amount. There's a 6% difference, with more non-group members being the main ones that are the main bulk of employees. So, and as you can see, the near misses by day, which I was a mess up on my part, but group members tend to have more, less near misses than non-group members by about a 20 or 10, yeah, about a 10 jump difference right there. And one thing I would want to determine with that is, why are we seeing more non-group members having more near misses? Which it's still close to even, and it's hard to really break down, like, hey, this one's so much more different than this one. But if you can determine why the non-group members are having more near misses than the group members, it could even help you drop your group members as well. Because if you implement a new rule, could be the same reason for group members. But if it were me going at this head on, and I would look at both, because both are still high near misses. They're very high, and it could very easily result in a recordable, which is something you really don't want, because it could result in death, and you're losing money for your company, and you really don't want your employees to get hurt. So, near misses versus recordables. So, in January to May, you see that you had 6 recordables, 2 occurring in January. You see a spike of near miss. So no recordables through June to December, but you see a spike of near misses in those months. So the reason I would say, and this gives you an opportunity, because first off, you can look at January, February, March, April, May. You have that automatic material with a recordable, which is something you really don't want, but it helps you to determine why these things are happening. Why are these people getting hurt? Why are we having to record this? So it gives you evidence right there to determine what you need to do with your safety program to make something like this not happen again. Now, I would really look at June to December. Why are we seeing this many near misses? Because easily any one of those could have become a recordable. And that's a problem because more recordables is more injuries to employees, more cost, more workman's comp, stuff like that. And it seems to me, and the trend it shows with the recordables happening to these people in January to May, it looks like it is so low because that recordable just happened. It's fresh on your mind. So you're like, hey, we need to be safe for this. So people are going to be more apt to follow your safety program. They're going to be more willing because that evidence is right in front of them. They're before that, and you see this June to December, they don't think about that. They're like, hey, this hasn't happened in a while. We're good. Because you see June to July, you see a spike. June and still on their mind from May, the recordable in May. Then June to July, you see a 10 spike, which it holds till November, and then you see this big spike in November and December. So if I were going to go at this head on, I would definitely look at June to December and remind people, hey, this can happen at any point because I feel like people forget, hey, stuff like this happens. It happens to everyone, it can happen anywhere. And it needs to be reminded, hey, you need to be safe because something like this could happen to you. So this is our OIR number, and it's the OSHA incident rate, and it shows the incident rate for your recordables versus, so it's recordables times 200,000, and it is divided by the amount of hours you worked in that month of all employees. So if you look at January, it is outrageously high. You had the two recordables in that month. That is outrageously high with over a 12 into OIR rate. So you move into February, you have drops down to close to a 6, and February March goes to 6 to into the 5s, which is still not good. That's a recordable that right now you're posting a recordable every month, which is definitely not good. And it continues like that, jumps up in April and stays the same in May. But as soon as you get to May and you hit June, you drop out. And I'm wondering, as I said in the last slide, maybe that is a reminder on people's minds. Hey, people got injured. We should be more safe. They start committing more to their safety program. No more recordables. Or you could have the possibility of first aids. So, how do you drop an OIR number like this, especially this high? It's more of a commitment to your safety program. And you really need to take a look at why these are happening, what these recordables are, and learning from them, and instituting a safety program that will help drop that OIR number so you're not having to pay more money. You're uh, with more people getting hurt, that's not a good thing. So we have our top near misses. And to score these top tier misses or top near misses, you're given a high risk score. And the high risk score is to base basically what the risk of every near miss is. And right now we have the top 5 with a cost analysis with it. So I give this one a higher score of 15. So an employee was on the roof and wanted to pass some tools to a lower level. The employee put the tools in a bag and lowered the tools down. The employee below was required to lean out and stretch to reach the tools. He almost fell. Well, that I give that a 15 because that one could have, depending on where they're at. So I'm thinking a roof, I'm thinking an airport. If this is a big airport, they are more than 25, 30 feet in the air. A fall from that height and hitting anything on the way down or hitting the ground itself could easily result in a death. So it's one of those things that you really need to pay attention to. PPE, tying off, and the right method of lowering tools down. There should be a bucket for that and an installed system to drop them down. So you really need to take a look at how can you limit this. So I would really say PPE and a better system of passing tools from level to level. So the direct cost, which would be your workman's comp and how much you're paying to help a worker that experienced a fall like this, would be around 54,000. With an indirect cost, which is everything else, the amount of time you having to pay for someone being gone, the amount of time you're overtime you're having to compensate for, is around $60,000. So the total cost would end up being around $115,000, which is a lot of money, especially if this does end up being a recordable. You're forking out $115,000, and that's just the minimum because there could be something else happen to this guy. That's on the basis that he survived the fall, and there's certain types of damage, but you never know what could happen. So, I gave this one a higher score, a 16. So, the employee was adjusting their radio while driving out of the parking garage when someone pulled out in front of them. He slammed on his brakes to avoid hitting them. The employees will pay more attention to the road. The radio can wait until he is stopped. So, I gave this one a 16. And the reason I say that is because this wasn't specifically the worker's fault. Obviously, there was a driver at fault, but the worker should automatically assume that uh, I would go ahead and say the marker should automatically assume that no one else knows how to drive. So you have to really be paying attention to the road, which is something he wasn't doing. He's fiddling with the radio. He should have really been paying attention to the road and uh, really looking to see if any oncoming traffic was going to pull out, if anything like this was going to happen, even if he had right away. Uh, a way to avoid this would be, I would say, training. And the reason I say training, I would really take a look at my employees and I would sit down and have a meeting with anybody who's in mobile equipment, that it is very important to pay attention, because it's not only to save the money or the company money, but this could easily be something you die in. I mean, at any point in traffic, because everybody's been in it, there's a point where you could easily just, it's over just like that. So you really need to appeal to the person's humanity and show them the fact that, hey, you're not indestructible in a vehicle. This could easily result in your death. So I gave this one a direct cost of 109,000, or found that it had a direct cost of 109,000 and an indirect cost of 120,000, with the total cost being 230,394. And I would say the reason this is so high is because, first off, you have injuries with it, but second, you're also damaging company vehicles. So if this did happen, you're going to have to replace a truck. Most likely, in a situation like this, you might have to pay. I wouldn't say you'd have to pay insurance, because this would not on the other person's car, because this would not be specifically his fault. It would be a very tough. It'd be something for the law enforcement to determine, but the reason the cost is so high is because there's so many factors and so many things that you're having to pay for in a situation like this. So, an employee was pulling out of a four-way stop when an approaching car failed to stop. He applied the brake quickly and let the other driver go through. The employee no longer assumes another driver will stop just because it is the law. I gave this one a 15 again, and the reason I say that is, again, this could easily result in another person's death or your own death. So that is two, and 90% of the time, if you look at uh, judges and laws in any kind of court case, they're going to side with the smaller person. They're not going to side with the huge company, and that's just how it goes, because people feel for the smaller person. So you're going to, like, it's going to cause something awful. And how I limit this again is training. I mean, you need to take a look at the people that are driving. You need to talk to them and appeal to them on the fact that, hey, if you don't die in a situation like this, someone else easily could, and you're going to have to live with that, even if it's not your fault, even if it's the other person's fault. It's best to pay attention, because then you're not the leading cause of someone getting hurt and or killed, and you yourself are still alive and you're perfectly healthy. And again, I give this one higher cost, just because of the fact that 67,000, 73,000, up to $140,000 in total cost is because you're damaging company property. You might have an employee injured or killed, and it's really going to cause those prices to spike. And it's one of those important things that you really need to look at. So, an employee with long hair did not have their hair tied back and almost went into a moving machine that moves luggage. This one is catastrophic, and I would be very surprised if it didn't end with terrible injuries or even death. Uh, a situation like this could easily end with something catastrophic, and it is so easy for it to happen. And a way to limit this automatically is certain standards that you have that say, hey, if you're working around this at any point in the company, wherever you are, your hair needs to tied back or need to be tied back. It cannot be let loose, because if she gets her hair caught in this machine, or whoever it is, if they get their hair caught in this machine, that's automatic catastrophic event. That is a catastrophic injury, even death. And that's why the direct costs are so high, and the indirect costs 161,000 for the direct cost, 178,000 for the indirect, with a total of $341,100. That is a lot of money because something like this is catastrophic. And I would also say PPE. I mean PPE because if someone say doesn't have a hairband or something like that, that could be some sort of protective equipment you could have, just a hairband. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but if the company supplies it and gives it to them clean out of the package, I feel like they'd be more apt to use it. So that's something I would look at to limit a hazard like this. All right, so we have another mobile equipment issue, and an employee was riding a luggage cart and hit the curb where the cart tipped and almost rolled over. He was going faster than recommended for top heavy vehicle he had. He will slow down and watch what he was doing. So again, 15. This is mobile equipment, and the reason I give it a 15 is because this one comes down to, first off, damage of company property once again. And this one to me has a lot of hazards with it, on the fact that you're carrying so much of a load that if you flip and say you come out of the vehicle, because I've heard stories of people getting crushed by falling equipment because they got out, that could easily result in someone's injury or death. So give it a 15. And how I'd limit this is, I mean, post speed limits, post lines where the road's going, where to stay in these lines. And honestly, there needs to be punishment if you're driving to a point like this. And I wouldn't start with that, I would say. I would implement these certain standards of lines where to go, lines where to stay, lines of speeds. But if people continue to break it, I would start citing. And that is something that you don't want to resort to, but it's something that can be used to help people to realize, hey, this is important because it could result in death. And that's why direct cost $67,003, indirect cost $73,703, with a total cost of $140,706. All right, so we have our RCA Fishbone risk cause, or okay, whatever. So you have the Mary Moss accident, and that is one of our recordables. And what happened was she was crushed by uh, a load from a forklift, and which is terrible because that could easily result in death. So some of the factors I would say with man would be tired, and it was early in the morning. It was closer to 8 a.m. So they're going to be tired and they just got to work. Nobody is fully ready to roll when they first get to work. And that is coming from experience of building houses and stuff like that I used to do. Was you weren't 100% ready. We would always take around 45 minutes to 50 minutes to get woke up, get some coffee in us, something like that. Uh, but to relax a little bit and let our minds get ready. So I would say that the fact that he just got to work, he was not fully there, he was not fully attentive, and he was not ready to go. So, and this is the person on the forklift, as well as the person on the ground as well, the person who got crushed. This was not specifically her fault, but I would say there's some factors that go into that. Uh, Maybe there wasn't, and I'll get into this more later on down the fishbone. So machine, and I would take a look at this, especially overloaded. What caused you? Because the person that had been working there had been working there for a very long time. So what caused the person to back off the dock? And I'm not saying it can happen to anyone at any time, but a person like this knows more of what they're doing, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But was the machine overloaded, which caused you to back up further, maybe to get out of the way of something? Maybe it took more effort from the forklift to stop. What it was, the overload of the machine, one of the causes. Environment, and this one to me is a very big one. And so no warning lines, and this could be for the person who is walking on the ground, the person in the forklift, does not matter. But no warning lines, not any point of where it's saying, hey, you need to stay this many feet back to avoid injury. No spotter either. You should have had someone spotting saying, hey, you need to stop. You're going to roll right off the back. You need someone watching. And at this point, it doesn't look like they had a spotter. Uh, and I also say the loading bay is cramped. If a load just came in, there's multiple people working, there's multiple uh, shipments coming in, you have a lot of people moving in and out of this space. So measurement, I would measure the speed. How fast is this person going? Were they rushing it? Were they ready to go? Like, what does it mean? and then weight. How much weight was put on that forklift versus its counterweights for it, so overload. So, and then material, amount of material being carried, I think is very important, and what kind of material is being carried is very important. And then method. So, were you letting a tired driver drive, and was he driving while being inattentive? Because I think of it like this: the person that was on the forklift had been there a long time, and I feel like you get so confident with how you do things, and oh, I've got this. You don't think about it. You become complacent. You're like, okay, it doesn't matter. I've got this. It's all muscle memory. But that doesn't matter because accidents can still happen, which resulted in an accident for Mary Moss, who got crushed. And it was not specifically her fault pretty much at all in this situation. I would say the safety and especially environment, no warning lines. And I would also add no guardrails. I would put guardrails on the side of my loading bay, even if that means you have to extend out on the loading bay a little bit. Extend out, put those guardrails on, and that could really help you avoid something like this. All right, so we have our recordable cost analysis. We have 6 total recordables, and just looking at how much they did cost the company, this is a for sure cost. All right, so we have recordable number 1, and this occurred on January 15th. Mila Salt was checking baggage before the flight when she was exposed to an unknown liquid and received multiple chemical burns on her forearm. So you have a direct cost of $47,192, indirect cost of $51,911, with a total cost of about $100,000. So taking a look at this, why did something like the sorry, I've lost my train of thought. Something like this, taking a look at the cost, why would it be so high? Well, you're getting exposed to an unknown chemical, and which is not a good thing at all. And the burns are costing you money, obviously. So you're taking a look at why something like that, like taking a look at why something like this happened, and especially what you have to do to fix it. So, recordable number 2 is January 18th. Mary Moss was crushed by the forklift, which we talked about in our RCA, at the loading docks and received multiple breaks and injuries. This one's going to be high. This one's very awful for something like this to happen, could have easily resulted in death. So, a direct cost of $78,141, an indirect cost of $85,955, and a total cost of $164,000. This one's like, especially in a situation like this, we talked about it, warning lines, especially warning lines, spotters, people taking a look at what is going on with the whole thing, having everybody backed up. It's kind of like if you're working on a construction site and you've got a live load in the air, you don't have anyone standing under that load because you don't know what's going to happen with that rigging. Same thing with this. You don't know how the operator is reacting right now. You don't know his reaction time. So you really need to take into the factor of, like, could this happen? What could happen? And what could result of it? So you need to take in every factor. This one, and again, I will talk about the total cost real quick first. $22,000 doesn't seem like a lot compared to the other ones, but to me, it is one of the most important. And I'll get to that right after I read. So, on February 24th, Patricia Sage was parking and retrieving vehicles for customers when she was exposed to COVID 19. She had respiratory issues and trouble smelling. So, obviously, direct cost $10,788, indirect cost $11,000, almost $12,000, and a total cost of $22,650. So you look at it, and the reason I say this one is very important is because something like COVID-19, and it is a very contractable disease, it moves easily. That 22,000, especially how quickly it moves, and you could take a look at the pandemic and how quickly it did, that could easily result and turn it, if 10 employees catch it, that is $100,000 or $200,000, excuse me. That's $200,000 just like that. You've lost that much money, and there's 200 employees in this. If 100 of them catch it, that's almost $2 million over that. It's out, and that is a lot of money. So the reason why this is so important and how you limit something like this, and why the reason you limit something like this is because it could spread so easily. And they're lucky they didn't catch any more cases of it, because that's going to be at one point. And if this was during pandemic guidelines, they could be out for 2 weeks, and that is a lot of money to lose. So, and you're having multiple people jump back and forth from being in, being out, being in, being out, and you have a lot of money you're having to pay because so many indirect costs to me more than direct is because so many people are gone. Also, and how I would limit something like this, especially, is I would look at how it's being transferred. Contact tracing, which was done during 2020, during whenever it started hitting, and I would also N95 mask, which are good, and that one's one of the hardest ones because PPE, first off, should not be the last resort or the first resort. It should be your last resort, and it's so hard to get people to comply with something like that. And it's understandable. Nobody wants to wear a mask, but to start with that and to limit it, the limit exposure could help. And then also vaccines coming out. And I would not force this on employees. This is one of the hardest things about it. You want people to be safe, but also people have their own opinions. Now that's depending on the company. The company can decide, hey, you need to have this to work here, or you don't get to have it, or you don't get to work here. So that's a very controversial one that it's hard to go with. But that would be my two things: 6 feet of distance as well. But contact tracing, the mask are very important to limit the exposure of everyone. All right, so we have recordable number 4. So on March 11th, Hunter Kelly was working on a forklift and sprained their ankle while exiting the forklift. So you have a direct cost of $30,000, or 30,000, almost $30,500, and an indirect cost of around $33,550, $540. So total cost $64,022. Now this is, to me, a tough one because it's hard to battle something like this, especially it's hard to limit an injury to me like this. And the reason I say that is because uh, it's one of those that has to be engineered in, and it's hard to engineer that into a forklift. But that's what I would look at first. How far apart are your steps from the ground? Can you make possibly even because you can't drop them too low, you'll start hanging on stuff, which creates more hazards. But could you create a folding ladder possibly? Could you create something like that hey, I'm gonna get down, I'm gonna fold it, you don't have to take a 2 foot step to the ground? And because especially something like this, sprained ankles can happen very easily from the slightest thing, slightest twinge in the ankle, slightest hole. So especially something like this could really start building up. So that's what I would look at to limit it, is that itself. Then you have recordable number 5. So on April 4th, Forrest Hudson was making repairs to a vehicle at the airport and knocked over a shelf containing parts. While reaching for the parts, the shelf collapsed and fell on him. So you take a look at this, and this one's a tougher one to me as well. And I would definitely take a look at the method of how he's getting these parts, because if he's climbing the shelves or the shelves are overloaded, you're obviously creating a hazard because the shelves would be followed to a T on how much weight they can bear. And this ended up having a direct cost of around $67,000 and an indirect cost of $73,000, 73,700, almost $74,000, with a total cost of $140,706. Now, how would I? I definitely I'd take a look at engineering in this, but I don't think there's much you could do with that. But method to me is very important. How much, and especially going through as a safety guy, as a safety program, I would go through and I would limit. So I would go through and I'd find the weight limit for everything, or what can be put on the shelf. I'd label shelves, and I would keep the most needed things at the bottom, especially. But uh, this could have easily resulted in a bigger injury. But I would definitely take a look at those things, as well as method of how he's reaching it. So have a ladder or something, have some sort of ladder to reach the parts instead of climbing the shelves, because not 100% sure how it happened, but I would definitely take a look at that. So we have recordable number 6. So on May 16th, Kingston Emerald was working at a counter processing tickets when she came in contact with a bare wire and received an electrical burn. This one this one's a tough one too. Well, not a tough one specifically. And the reason I say that is because, first off, this can be easily limited. You just need to check for these wires. Because a situation like this, if she brushed a wire walking near a wall or something, it was left out. It was left as a hazard. Could have easily resulted in something worse, because electricity is something that could easily kill someone. So you really need to take a look at it. But how I'd limit something, which your direct cost 67,000, indirect cost close to 70, $4,000 with almost $100,000 total cost. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money to be forking out over an electrical burn, and it could have easily resulted in something worse, even death, because you never know. What if a voltage is high on that specific outlet, that specific wire, and she makes better contact than what she did? So limit something like this. Anytime you're working with electricity, anytime you have electricians come through, after they get out, I would go through and look, and I would go through and look for every point that they worked, just to make sure none of these hazards are coming up. That's how I would limit it. So, have some really big numbers here from recordables, but near miss potential is outrageous. Almost $1 million in near misses. That's just the 5 we looked at, which is crazy. That's almost $1 million, and there was 300 more near misses out there. And this, to me, why you would need a safety guy is because, first off, you have almost $600,000 in recordables total. That is a lot of money to be forking over, and people getting injured in 1 year. With people getting injured in general, you don't want that. You want to keep people safe. So to limit these prices and to limit the amount of near misses happening along with the recordables, and to drop your OIR number, maybe even your citations, you need a safety guy, because a safety guy is going to come in, and if you get a good one, and this is what you want, this is what you need to look into, is, are you going to get one that is committed to keeping people safe? And that is the most important thing, because if you can keep people safe, a guy that is committed to keeping people safe will drop the amount of money you spend on recordables, will drop the amount of potential near misses you have that could result in catastrophic events, catastrophic accidents. That is really going to help keep your entire company, first off of OSHA citations, keeping those away, keeping your employees safe and healthy, which first off gets more work done in general. You're making more money that way, and spending less money on accidents, workman's comp, and the indirect costs that come with it, all the overtime that has to be made up. That, to me, is specifically why you need a safety guy, because you can't do it without someone that is committed to that safety program. And management has to be committed to it as well, as long as the employees. But you need to have someone there that knows OSHA, that knows how to keep people safe, and wants to keep people safe, that will make the unpopular decision if it means this guy doesn't get hurt. Because it might not look like it at the start, but you're going to save money because of it. All right, so this was a big deal to me, and it really hurt me to sit here and read those because they were not very good. Uh, a lot of the people, and this is just one of the examples, and I will point out multiple, uh, but they did not fill out their OSHA logs very well at all. So if you take a look at, so what was the employee doing just before the incident occurred? Uh, Not a lot of detail in these. This is what I didn't like, because if OSHA wants detail, and if it's and I've heard a lot of my teachers tell me, a lot of people tell me, if you don't document it, OSHA does not believe it happened. So you need to start with fixing your documentation. So take a look at 15, for example. When a ladder, so you're supposed to be all out with it. You're supposed to really explain in detail what happened. When a ladder slipped on a wet floor, worker fell 20 feet. Uh, First off, he spelled collapse wrong, but shelf holding parts collapse. So I would be a little more specific with it. What was the worker doing? So worker was trying to reach a part on the shelf. Hey, he's doing this. And that should have happened in 14, because he just says, what was he doing when the incident occurred? Oh, he's repairs and services vehicles. Not his job title, what he was doing specifically. Look at injuries and illnesses. You're supposed to report every single injury and illness that happened to this guy. The employee received multiple physical injuries. That is not very specific at all, and OSHA is not going to like that. And it's important to know, so you can look back later that, hey, this thing's happened. And I would say 17's all right, but I would go into a little more detail. That is my point I'm making, is that the people that are doing these OSHA forms need to go into more detail to uh, better describe what's happening, so it can be looked at later if needed, and report it, because you have to report your recordables. So the OSHA themselves need to know that what has happened in good detail, that they can determine what's happened, and you need it for later as, and I'm going to say this in Nick Nicholas way, CYA. So Would I buy this company personally? Yes. And I feel like that's a little bit of a controversial thing, but the reason I would is a lot of the hazards that fixed, a lot of the near misses that I looked at and recordables could be fixed with a commitment to safety. It was nothing that was outright blatant like, hey, we just didn't even try, which is one of those things like I would really look for if you were going to buy a company. That was something I didn't see here. So you have some commitment to safety. And the issues with documentation, those are fixed with attention to detail, as is with everything. Attention to detail, attention to going above and beyond OSHA regulations to secure the safety of your employees. And a big one to me, a very big one, was the no recordables that resulted in death. That is very big one to me because that means that there is some sort of safety going on with this program. People seem to care. And with Easy, look at the bottom, and the recordables as well as the near misses, you can't avoid every near miss. You can't eliminate every hazard. But with the right safety program, you could limit them as far as possible. Now, there's going to be hazards with everything you do. There is going to be, at one point, even if you're the greatest safety uh, team with the greatest safety program, there will be a recordable. But how far can you limit them to keep these people safe? And if there is a recordable, how low of a hazard is it? Is it going to result in a death, which I didn't see here? But is it going to result in a death? And is it going to result in a very bad physical injury? So that is my reasons why I would buy this company because I think they did an actual pretty good job. Just there's some points where you need to fix. So, wellness program. And to me, this is a very important one to me. And the reason I say that is because I've had experiences with people in my family that their obesity and being overweight really hurt their quality of life. But it really hurt them in the end, which caused them an unwisely, unlikely death. And it was very sad. And I don't like to see that. I like I like to see people healthy. I think it helps you be happier as well. So, but the reason I picked this one and the reason I picked this wellness program is because it's one of the leading causes of health issues, first off in companies, but also America. A lot of people are obese in America, and it's causing, as you can see, it can really affect your quality of life. The better in shape you are, the more things you can do, the better to me your life will be. If you look at it, and you can look at the examples of people being in physically good shape, and that doesn't mean being ripped, being outrageously in shape, but it just means that hey, I care about what my how my body is, the health more than the look, and that helps too. It helps people's quality of life. They have more assurance in themselves. They have more self-esteem, but also, and this is an important one too, it can affect how safe people can be in the workplace. And the reason I say that is because, and I've heard multiple people talk about it at companies, but there's overweight people working at these companies, and a lot of the times it is hard to get them equipment, PPE, because they're so big. And that's not knocking them, but I'm saying that it's harder to get them the right stuff. It's harder to get them insert because you're not as lean, not as agile, you can't move as well, and it's going to result in more injuries because your body is not physically toned to be able to handle an injury and illness as well because it's not good for an illness either. That is why I chose the overweight, the obesity, which was up to 64%. And I would really want to limit that because I think it would help our workplace's quality of life. And I think it would help how safe the people can be, as well as in their own personal lives. So, my goals of the program, I want to see a 10% reduction in weight. This seems outrageous, but I think the higher, if you're getting up into the 400 pounds, you need to lose 10% of that, which is going to be closer to 40. That's what I want to shoot for. That would be my goal. Now, that's not going to be specific. It's not going to be met by everyone. But if anybody that does try this and does start losing the weight is going to, I think it's going to be a good thing for them as well as a good thing for the company. So that would be my goal. And I would want it to do it in a healthy way. And there could be people in the company that are lean, that are not that overweight or somewhat overweight. I don't want them to have to put themselves at a unhealthy advantage because they're losing weight. So, and I would also want to see a reduction in the waistline measurement. I think that one's an important one, and I think it would help with people's self-esteem, seeing that, hey, and I'm not saying that that is everything for people. This is all to me. I think it's all about health, but that's also a part of quality of life. Is you have a higher self-esteem, you have higher assurance in yourself, and you start thinking of yourself higher. So, what my program involves. So, I would say that the two most important things are dieting and exercise. And none of those, I would say, are specific, but I would say these two are very important because, first off, dieting is going to help you lose weight. Exercise is going to help you lose weight, but both of those are together are going to help you improve your health immensely and help you drop that weight. So I would definitely include those two as what it involves for the employees, and I would say the employees are required to during this time. So reduce the weight slash waistline in a healthy way, and I say a healthy way is because losing weight too fast is not good for you. You need to, and that's why I say in a healthy way because, and you take measurements over the year with, or you take place over takes sorry excuse me takes place over the year with measurements each month because you can watch it go down slowly and you can really monitor the health of these people. So how do I get the message out? I'd send that dude through emails, man. Everybody's got phones now. Everybody has a company email most of the time. I would send that through emails, and I would send start dates, how we're gonna do it, everything. I would also give, I'd say toolbox talks. Everybody has toolbox talks. Usually some sort of meeting, safety meeting. I would also include it in there as something to kind of like lighten the mood. Say, hey, we're gonna have a little competition. Let's see who can do the best. And but I don't want it to be fully about that. I want it to be fully about everybody's own health and their own weight loss. So, and I would also post it on walls and bulletin boards. So rewards, and this one was harder for me because if we're doing this in Portland, Oregon Airport, I've never lived there. And the reason I say that is because I've lived in the rural South, Southern South. I know what people like around here. I don't know what people like in Portland, Oregon. So I included these, and I would reward them throughout the month with bigger ones awarded at the end of the year. And I'm also going to take account with that how the people like how committed they stayed with it. But what I would include with the rewards are jackets, shirts, gift cards, and the big ones, vacations. And again, I say etc. because I want to know like whatever company this is. If it is in Portland, Oregon, I would want to know what these people like, especially because people are different, cultures are different in every state. I want to figure out what these people are into, most people are into, and figure out how can I get rewards based on what they enjoy. All right, so measurement methods. So I would take it in 2 week intervals from the start date. And the reason I say that, and take one at the start date, but measurements in 2 week intervals helps to monitor the health and how quickly they're losing weight, because if they're losing them too quickly, I would be afraid for their health, and that is why I would do it every 2 week interval. And I would chart it through Excel to determine the waistline effectively, so you can get it quickly. You can really determine, hey, who's up here, chart it, even show charts for everybody if you wanted to, if they wanted them, or show a chart of the full company and how far they're dropping. And the data is used, as I said, monitor less or loss, as well as monitoring health of employees. And I would also do totals for everyone at the end of the year. And along with that, I want reward for the entire company. Hey, you committed to this. You got to the end of the year, you lost this weight. Let's celebrate with it. Some sort of lunch, maybe something like that along those lines that everybody can enjoy together. So that would be my measurement methods for it. And that is the end of my talk. Thank you very much.